This is former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. In 2011, she was standing outside a grocery store in Tucson. She was talking with her constituents, the kind of meet and greet every representative should have. And then a man opened fire. 6 people were killed and 13 were injured. Gabby Giffords was shot in the head. And somehow, miraculously, she lived. And for a moment, just a brief minute, it felt like this country was finally going to change. We always say if it ever happens to one of them, right? If it happens inside their own halls of power, they'll finally care. But when it actually did, all they did was show us who they really are. Giffords came back from that shooting fighting for her life and then fighting for reform. She stood before the same institution that failed her and begged for something as basic as background checks. And still, Congress looked her in the face and said no. 2 years later, the Senate had the chance to act, to pass the Manchin-Toomey Amendment. It was simple: close loopholes, expand background checks. The kind of bill that most Americans already agreed with. And who voted against it? Mitch McConnell, John Cornyn, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, Tim Scott, John Thune, Deb Fischer, Chuck Grassley. All of them sending their thoughts and prayers while cashing checks from the gun lobby. They love to talk about law and order, about protecting life, about moral leadership. But when one of their own was nearly murdered and a 9-year-old child was killed standing beside her, they still couldn't find the courage to vote yes. And that's why the phrase, if it was one of them, they'd care, just doesn't hold anymore. It was one of them, and they didn't care. Because the truth is, they don't legislate based on empathy. They legislate based on money, power, and the performance of morality, not the practice of it. They know that outrage fades, but donations don't. Those same senators have outlasted every news cycle, every school shooting, every funeral. They watched families bury their children and still voted against background checks, assault weapon bans, and red flag laws. They've convinced half the country that freedom means access to death, then called it patriotism. And the wildest part? They built entire careers off of pretending to care while doing absolutely nothing. Gabrielle Giffords spent the last decade learning how to walk and talk again, fighting for a country that let her down. Meanwhile, the people that looked her in the eye and voted no are still there, still protected, still paid, and still pretending to pray. We keep saying if it happened to them, then they'd care. But it did, and they didn't. So stop waiting for their empathy. They already told us what side they're on, and it's not ours. If their colleagues surviving a bullet to the head wasn't enough to make them act, then nothing will.